We are on. We are live. Alright guys, what is up? Welcome to HexTCGPro cast, episode, I'm gonna guess this is probably like episode 7 or so. I think actually when the game goes live, I'm just gonna start like keeping track of that so we actually know that, because it's kind of silly not knowing what episode we're on. With me, we actually got John Tata with us. He's over here. He's the
Holy cow!
He's the guy who can't afford a webcam. So he doesn't. Actually, he does have webcam. It just always shuts off whenever we get more people in here. So whatever. Dusty with his brand new, probably like $3,000 webcam. What's up, Dusty? And then Charles over here. I always mess this up because it's like mirrored, but like Charles over here. How you doing, Charles? In case you mess up the points, their names are underneath them, so you can tell that way as well. We actually have a pretty good show today. We're going to talk about the new cards that were spoiled this week, and we're going to go through and kind of talk about the decks that we kind of want to build, or at least decks that we think might be really fun to play once Alpha starts, because it's only like 2 weeks away or so. So, good morning, guys. You woke me up with your voice. You should sell yourself as an alarm clock. Probably would make more money that way. Alright, so we'll just dive right in. Actually, before we dive in, I don't want to dive in the waters too soon. Do you guys want to say anything? You guys want to say anything to these awesome viewers? Talk about anything cool that you've learned about Hex this week? Nothing? Not even Charles has anything to say?
Got nothing. Yeah, nothing particularly I could think of. It's been a pretty busy week for me outside of Hex, so.
Alright, cool. It's a new pick with the WVU hat. I agree. Is that a Steelers hat?
Yeah.
Oh my god, what a noob. Alright. You're out. You're kicked off the show. Alright, so starting out, we'll start off with the new card that got released here, the old Cerebral Fulmination. Whatever the hell that is. I don't know what that means, but whatever. That is what it is. 2-drop, 2 Ruby Threshold. At the start of each champion's turn, they draw an additional card. So we'll start off with John, since he's on the far left. Go to Dusty, go to Charles, and then I'll chime in on it. What do you think about this sexy card, John Tata?
I love this card, actually. It's one of my favorite cards previewed so far. I'm pretty happy that it's actually in Ruby as well. I think Ruby can get some of the best uses out of it. This card works very well with a card called Hex Engine that I'll mention later to play the extra cards, or play the extra cards that you draw. It's one extra card per turn goes a long way to dealing 20 damage to your opponent. So I like it.
Awesome. Yes, I do too think we should submit the Shaggy Bus as a merc to Cryptozoic. I think they'd pick that up pretty fast. Maybe that's a contest we can do. Maybe you guys can like make up abilities that Shaggy Bus would do. Dusty, what do you think about this card I can't pronounce?
I'm not surprised that John likes it. From my standpoint, it's a card that you always want to keep an eye on, because it's definitely very powerful. I mean, getting to draw an additional card. But of course, the thing to remember, it's symmetrical. So your opponent gets to actually draw an additional card before you, which these type of effects tend to be. I think it's something you keep an eye on. Again, this isn't my cup of tea for deck building, but it's certainly powerful.
Charles, what do you think about the Lightning Fist Man?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing here is you're going to be giving up a card to your opponent first. I mentioned that on my cast last week. Obviously, this harkens us to what was it, Howling Mine, which is Artifact. So it's colorless, so anybody could play it, which is nice. But I typically don't, as a control player especially, don't like to give up cards to my opponent. I probably wouldn't play it that often, or find too many places for it, unless I was trying to do some sort of a mill strategy, I think. But it could work for some people, I'm sure, especially with the mechanics as they are in the game for drawing lots of cards, and the where you put the 4 cards back in your deck, that mechanic. Oh my gosh. This happens every time. But you know what I'm talking about, basically, where you cast the card and you shuffle 4 copies in. This will help you draw those other copies, and you could draw 2 of them, and then they're going to be even stronger every time you play them. So.
Sure, yeah. So Master Fett, here, I answer your question. Dusty touched a little bit on it before, but yes, the fact that your opponent does draw the card first is a big deal. You are giving your opponent that card advantage first before you take advantage of it. The thing I have to say about this card is so far that we haven't seen any constant removals, right? There still is yet to be.
There's the key.
Well, sure. That
That's
exiles everything, and there's the what is it, like the 8-drop like white removal that kills everything as well. But there's no actual just like destroy target constant, right?
Yeah, there's no instant removal for constants yet, but there should be, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure. So because we haven't seen any constant removal, I think it makes this a little bit better. You don't have to worry about playing this down and your opponent like drawing the constant removal and killing it, and then you not getting the card. So either way, you're going to get a card out of it if everything stays the same. I couldn't imagine there not being constant removal. I think this card is good in both control decks. I know me and John and Zach had a little conversation about that, how it kind of works as a control deck. And I think it's also kind of good for aggro as well. I think it plays well in that too. And I think that's probably what this card was probably designed for. I think they were probably trying to give away for aggro to kind of refill and keep throwing threats on the board. So I think it's definitely a very interesting card and one that I would like to play. It says draw a card on it, so that passes my test. So, I can't see me not trying to play it somehow.
Yeah, like someone was just saying there in chat, like it's great with escalation cards. So, I mean, it's really good with Rage Fire, of course. You can draw into it faster, theoretically. But the reason why this card, like, I don't think it's a big deal that your guy that you're playing gets the card first because of card quality. So you build your deck kind of around this card, so your card quality is better than your opponent's. If that makes any sense.
So when I first saw this card, and it does make perfect sense that you don't care if your opponent draws a 1/1 if you're drawing something that's like more powerful than that. Like I can definitely agree with that. But the first thing I thought of when I saw this card was how cool it'll be with the Enlightened Seeker guy or whatever, the monk guy or whatever. Right, like it keeps your hand full, so he can transform, and then at the start of your
Transcendent.
turn, the Transcendent. So then basically you'll be able to tutor two cards at the beginning of your turn. That's a pretty big deal. Yeah.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's there it is. Aesthetic Esperant. 2 cards of your choice. No big deal. So I think this card's pretty neat. I think we'll definitely probably play around with it, trying to do something. Probably having to carry Tada through.
Well, okay, so this question in chat again. Like, I don't assume that my opponent has a worse deck. Like his deck might be better than mine, but if this card is in my deck, I'm building around it. Like the cards that I'm drawing are cards that I want to draw every time. So I want to draw this Rage Fire, and I want to draw these huge 6-cost spells, and all this burn spells to kill your your cards like Ruby Lance, etc., etc. So I really don't care that your deck is really good and you're playing 6-drop 6/6. Like I'm just going to cast my 3 mana spell and deal 6 damage to it. I really don't care. So my card quality is going to be what this is in my deck for. It's not a card advantage card. So I mean it's just how it is.
Sure. So I think what John's trying to say, just kind of he's not saying that you're hoping your opponents are playing a worse deck. He's just saying that you're hoping that the card he draws will be loose, or not usable in that. Like if you draw a kill target creature card, for example, and you don't have a creature out, then that card he drew didn't matter. Then he draws a Rage Fire. If you don't have a creature, sure he can't kill it, but he can just dome you for 12 or however much damage, and then. Does that make sense? His cards are not necessarily better, but they're always going to be useful. Okay. So moving on to the next card, Sadistic Castigator, is that what this is? Sadistic Castigator. Yeah, there it is. 6-drop, 3 blood threshold, flight. When an opponent or opposing champion draws a card, they reveal it, deal damage to them equal to that card's cost. 3/4. I got one right. I did. Yay. So, John, what do you think about the Sadistic Castigator?
It's just kind of meh. I mean, it's more like a draft, all-star than it is in constructed, I would think. 6 mana for a 3/4. Even though it does have flight, I'm not ever too excited to cast. Its ability is okay, but again, I don't think this card is really very good for standard play or whatever.
Yeah. Real quick before we go any further, this card. I'm sorry, I missed your question. It says, what would be another example of a deck that would take advantage of extra draws other than Escalation Ruby decks? I'll go ahead and minimize this real quick, and then we can get back to that later. So what would be another deck that could take advantage of drawing, an extra card every turn?
Mill.
Yeah, well, things that have like cheap spells, like if that makes sense. Like all the cards that you draw extra off of that card, you want to be able to play. So the whole idea is to play either like resource acceleration, to play your higher mana cast cards, or just a whole bunch of cheap cards. So every extra card that you're drawing, you can just play like immediately.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Also, Charles, you said mill. I mean,
typically it's a turbo fog is what it's called. You just run a bunch of effects where it is that they get an attack phase, and you'll play this card, and they'll attack in, and you'll fog them, which means that they'll deal no damage to you, no combat damage whatsoever. And then the next turn you play another one. Now they're drawing like 3 cards every turn, and eventually you get a whole bunch of these in play, and you're either denying their strategy or fogging them out, and eventually they draw out, and hopefully you have usually you have a couple of things to put them a little bit further ahead on the card drawing than you, or mill them a couple, and then that's another strategy that could be used with this deck or with this card specifically, but you need some more support than just this card.
Okay. I think if there's a haster deck, like a deck made with a lot of haste creatures in it, that would be pretty good. If you're drawing haste creatures every turn, that's pretty powerful. That's the ability to at least get an attack off with it. If you let it set there, then a control deck could probably kill it before it can do anything. But if you get enough hasters, you might be able to take advantage of it that way.
Yeah, and like someone was saying in trade there, that it's like, the Ancestors Chosen would be good for it. Like, that's true, they work well together, but you also have to keep in mind that Ancestors Chosen is a Sapphire card, whereas this is two Ruby. So you can't be like turn 1 Ancestors Chosen and then like turn 2 play this, because it just doesn't work like that. Because there's no dual lands yet. So until there's dual lands, like, that's not going to happen.
Sure.
Another thing that you might consider is in the PvE side of it, in a raid. I mean, this is a global effect, and that could be powerful. But then again, the PvE challenge that you're dealing with, if they draw an extra card, it could be really bad for you as well. So, but having 3 people draw an extra card seems pretty good to me.
Yeah. So you're basically drawing. You're having your team draw extra cards. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Or if like more than one player has it too, that's pretty good too. Like you each are drawing like 2 extra cards. Like that's pretty good. Sure, yeah. So I think there's a lot of cool uses for this card. I think it'll for sure see play. How is it in draft? Before we move on, what do you guys think about this card in draft?
Effects like that in draft usually aren't very playable. It's much harder to build your deck around a Howling Mind in draft than it is in standard. So
sure.
Yeah, like Dusty's has his thumbs down. Like, that's completely accurate. Like, I would pass this card 99 times out of 100 in draft. So.
With that one time, Tana.
Right. Yeah. The one time I'll have the Nut Howling Mind deck. So.
So I think this card's a good example of the thing that I always hear people say is they're like that one time I drafted this card, and I drew the burn spell to kill him with it. So it's really good, right? Like,
you would have drawn it anyways.
Charles, you figured it out. You gotta be
Those
really
are called logical fallacies. That's the reason people go gamble, and they see on the roulette wheel that 10 blacks hit, and they say, "Man, red has to hit next." Sure. And that's why good players have advantages in card games.
Sure. I literally want to do a whole show about that. I really do, just about how people will they'll lose 99 out of 100 times. That one time they win with the 5-color deck, they're like, "Dude, it works. I won with it." It's like, sure. Look at consistency. All right, so Sadistic Castigator. In case you guys are just joining us, it is a 6-drop, 3-blood threshold, 3/4 flyer that says when an opposing champion draws a card, they reveal it. Deal damage to them equal to that card's cost. Oh my goodness. And also, like someone else said, it is a flying goblin. Which
a Wizard of Oz.
So Dusty, what do you think of this 3/4 Sadistic Castigator flight thing?
It's going to be pretty good in limited, obviously. I mean, it's one of those that, in a board stall, it's just, even if you can't attack with it, it's going to sit there, and, you might average 2 or 3 damage per turn with it. I mean, of course, again, that's where the guy will say, "Man, I hit my opponent for 6 when he hit the 6-drop or something like that." But, when you revealed shards and things like that, those, of course, cost 0. And then in constructed, I mean, again, we haven't seen the whole set, so I never fully judge a card, but it just doesn't seem high impact enough. You know, if it when an opponent drawed or drew a card, if you drew that card and then took damage to it or something like that instead, I mean, that's really the effect you want out of a 6-drop creature. You know, not just randomly dealing them a couple damage on a 3/4 body.
Sure. No, I agree. The big problem I have with this card is that it's a 6-drop 3/4 flyer, and Vampire King is a 4-drop 3/3 flyer. So I don't like if you're, and it's just better. Like its effect is also just better. So it's like I don't quite
Easier to cast.
Well, sure, it's much easier to cast. The threshold is much easier. The power and toughness are better. I mean, okay, the toughness isn't, but the power is the same, and it's still a flyer. And you make 2/2 flyers every time you kill something, which is what Black wants to do. So to me, if you're gonna, like, I don't understand why you played this card. Like I don't get, I guess, why they decided this was a card to make. Like I don't know. It seems like it's kind of loose.
I mean, another thing to consider in comparing toughness 4 to 3, we really haven't seen a difference between 3 and 4 toughness, and at least to my knowledge. What I mean by that, if there was a card that, like, 1 cost dealt 3 damage, like a lightning bolt for the Magic guys, that would be much different. But there is a shock, which is 1 cost and deals 2 damage, but there's really not a difference between 3 and 4 toughness. I mean, other than obviously in combat. So, like you said, Vampire King is just hands down better than this guy.
Yeah, and like, if you guys caught the Shaggy TV about the metagame, and I talked a lot about, like, it's really hard to judge these cards in the vacuum, like Dusty always says. And sure, if there is a lightning bolt, this card could be better, but I'm not sold yet on the fact that it's just a 3/4 flyer for 6, that its effect is kind of loose. I know, Shiz, you just said, what about the part where it says they reveal it? Isn't knowing their hand pretty strong, not just the damage? Like, you're right. Like, obviously, it's nice to know what card they just drew, but, like, most of the time, and I don't want to sound like cocky or, like arrogant or anything, but most of the time, by the 6, like, mana area of the game, I probably know what card they drew anyway. Like, I'm not exactly, obviously, but I can have a better idea of what they draw. Just them revealing the card isn't worth 6 mana. I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
Like,
well, it's something that's going to come up with future cards as well. Is that when you cast something for 6 resources, all right, you want it to do something like immediately. So like a card like this, like, sure, the effect is kind of cool. You'll probably dome your opponent for 4 to 6 damage probably, but like it doesn't do anything to like affect the board immediately, other than being a 3/4 of the flying. So that's just. That's why it's not very good.
Yeah, and like, okay, so Brew, you just said, oh, I'm sorry, not Brew. Eric the Great says, is there anything you can play that can make your opponent draw multiple cards? Currently, there isn't. But like, the problem is, I don't.
Well,
want to. Yeah, well, sure.
The one we just.
Okay, sure, but I think what he's asking is a card that just, like, target opponent draws 3, or target player draws 3 cards or something. I think that's what they're talking about.
Right.
There isn't yet, but even if there was, I don't want to use that on my opponent to make them take damage. Like, I want to draw the cards. I don't want my opponent ever to draw cards ever.
Yeah.
I would much rather than never draw cards. So I don't think that it's worth building this deck where it's like I want to have my opponent draw a bunch of cards and kill themselves.
That's like the definition of janky.
Sure. Oh, exactly. I feel like what's going to happen is your opponent's going to draw a bunch of cards, kill that creature, and then be like, haha, get shit on. I have more cards than you now, which is like not a good idea to build a deck around. I don't think. Charles, what is your idea of the sadistic flying goblin man?
Unfortunately, the only thing I could possibly put him in is a 2/of and some sort of control shell, and there are better things for 6 that I would cast in a control shell. That's it.
Here we go. All right, cool, man. Awesome. Sadistic Castigator, you are a noob. Get out of here. All right, so what we're going to do now is that's only 2 cards we've seen so far. Hopefully some more. Hopefully they keep the previews coming, and hopefully they decide to give some to our website like they said they were going to. So we're going to move on real quick to the decks that we built. I didn't build one, so what we're going to do is John's going to build one. He already has on the website. We'll talk about that. And then Dusty's going to show his. Charles is going to show his, and then we, as a team, are going to build build a tempo deck. So that's kind of our idea, our strategy, to kind of give you guys an idea of what it's like whenever 4 awesome players get together and build a unstoppable goblin deck. All right, so let me switch it over to this mode here, which I get my Also, guys, feel free to ask questions this whole time. It is completely okay. Like, we will take all the time we can to answer questions. I know it's really hard to understand Tata a lot of times. So.
And I'll take this second to say that tonight we will be giving away a alternate art Ozawa for the prize for the stream tonight.
You know what we need to start doing? And I hope I don't sound like a dick when I say this, but I really need to start to like advertise that like before the stream is streaming. Like,
Yeah, whatever.
That's fine. No big deal. We'll go ahead and
MBD.
So looking at the giveaway spreadsheet right now, it looks like we have at least 4 more Ozawas and 4 or 5 more packs of sleeves. So, in the coming weeks, you guys can have a chance to win all that. And I also got a call from Dan Clark from Cryptozoic, and he is mailing me a signed Hex mouse pad that we will also be doing something with. So stay tuned for that.
We're giving that away to a child. We're auctioning that off the Child's Play, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the idea. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is take that signed mouse pad, let you guys like bid on it or whatever, and then give all the money to Child's Play. So, because we're nice guys like that. We like children. Actually, I don't think Charles does, but everyone else.
I did, and then I had some.
I hear that's a bad idea from everyone that I've ever talked to. Okay, so we'll start off. We're talking about John's mono red control deck. So John's going to kind of be the he's going to be talking about the control decks, and we'll also be kind of talking about what we think about control. And then this is the deck he kind of built during his Deck Garage series, right, John?
Yeah.
So he does it every Monday, I think, on the website HexTCGPro.com. So starting off, we'll talk about the hero you chose, Farnery.
Yep, this guy. I wasn't thrilled to play this guy as my champion, but the alternatives were all pretty bad. Like there's Tetzot, which it creates a rock elemental for 6, which is power and toughness equal to number of resources you reveal out of the top 10 cards. Wasn't a big fan of that one. There's the Poka one, which is create a blaze elemental, which is not what we want in a control deck. And then there was Lionel Flynn, which is probably the worst charge power of any champion ever. So didn't really want to play him. So Farney was just the best out of the 4, in my opinion. Tetzot's probably the second best, even though I didn't think it was that good.
I'm so sorry, guys. The deck isn't up. You're right. Thanks. I thought one of my moderators would tell me. Fucking assholes. All right. So this is the guy, Farnery here, the old dwarf.
Yeah, and Dusty linked it in chat too if you guys want to go to the website and look at it, but it should be up on the stream now. But so that's champion. The troops, you have Charge Bot, Rocket Ranger. I started off with Specialist, but ended up cutting him. Master Theory Crafter, Heavy Welding Bot, and the Rampaging Tarask. All of these cards serve different purposes, and I talked about all of them, kind of in depth. But the Charge Bot, I feel, is pretty good with the hero charge power. Kind of just works to add charges to it, and let you get to 5 charges very quickly. So on maybe turn 4, you can use this charge power, even if you only have like a 2-cost artifact or something in play. But like ideally, turn 4 you'll play Hex Engine and then use this charge power, which is to kill their 3 or 4 drop, which is pretty good. Rocket Ranger is kind of like a build a dragon for 1 turn, like a 5/2 speed troop with flying is pretty good. Plus it's a dwarf and it counts towards other random keyword dwarf cards. Let's see, with Shrine of Prosperity he's also a 3/3 I think it is. So that's pretty good too. The Heavy Welding Bot is pretty good in this deck to recur charge bots from your graveyard.
What card are you talking about?
The Welding Bot,
the
Heavy Welding Bot, yeah, works pretty well with Charge Bot and as well with Sapper's Charge. So that's something to keep in mind too.
Yeah, Sapper's Charge's awesome.
Yeah, I like Sapper's Charge a lot, and I also really like the Rampaging Tarask. A lot of people see this guy as kind of like a faster type troop, like as a finisher and like a faster deck, but he doesn't die at end of turn like all of his magic kinfolk. So I feel like this guy's going to be pretty good in the control deck. So, you clear the field with Rage Fire or Burn or Ruby Lance or, Sapper's Charge or whatever. Then you play this guy and just attack for 8. So that's pretty strong. And also the other troop that's one of your finishers is the Master Theory Crafter. So I feel like he's pretty good with a lot of your artifacts stay in play, like Shrine, Hex Engine, welding bots, charge bots.
So you're giving him haste, right?
Yeah, I have the speed gem in him for now. Something to consider that I talked about is putting the resource kill gem in him. So basically what that would do is every time that he does damage to your opponent, they have to destroy one of their resources. So essentially, if you can power him out with Hex Engine, you can start using him as early as turn 6, I guess it'd be, because he wouldn't have speed anymore, and you can essentially lock your opponent out of resources past turn 5 or 6, I guess.
Sure.
So they wouldn't ever get more than 5 or 6 resources. So that's something to consider as well, and could be better than the speed gem, even.
Yeah, I mean it's a powerful effect, in this game, so far. Being able to kill. I mean, actually, in any game, killing the resources is a kind of a big deal if you can abuse it enough.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so anything else you want to talk about in the deck?
Yeah, well, just the non-troop cards. Hex Engine, I feel, is one of the most powerful cards in the entire game for slower decks. There was a card in Magic.
Can you explain what Hex Engine does?
Sure, yeah. So Hex Engine, 4-cost artifact. It comes into play tapped, and you can activate it to add 2 resources to your resource pool, like 2 temporary resources. So in Magic, there's a card called Thran Dynamo, which is very similar to this card. It costs 4, and you tapped it for 3 colorless mana. So this card is like along that same line, except in this game, like essentially everything just costs colorless mana. So as long as you have the threshold for it, there's no casting costs. So essentially this card gives you 7 mana starting on turn 5, which is absolutely insane.
Sure.
So I really, really, really like Hex Engine, and I think I'm going to build probably a few more decks that use that card. So to answer the question, chat, you don't actually choose a color because there's no colors in this game. You have a threshold and everything just costs colorless mana. So if that makes sense. So so starting on turn 5, you tap it and you have 7. So yeah, you still have to meet threshold costs, which is fine, but you just get 2 free resources. So that's pretty excited about that. Of course, everything else is pretty standard. Rage, Fire, Burn. The old Ruby Lance is really good. Sapper's Charge. I'd like to test the Shrine of Prosperity. I really like that card, and I think that this is a very good deck for it. Something that can utilize both artifacts and its all of its powers. And then the 1 Chaos Key just for your catch-all answer.
Yeah. I like Chaos Key. I think it costs maybe a little too much to put more than 1 in. Maybe 2, but I don't know. I think it's a little expensive to use its effect, but I think this effect is very powerful.
Yeah, and one last thing about this deck is it also might be better to not go the whole dwarf path and instead play Tatalka, which I don't have a link for it right now, but
she's up here. Didn't you put her up here somewhere?
I don't think
the 3-1.
No, that's the champion. I'm talking about the actual card, Tatalka.
Okay.
Yes, there she is, Dusty. Scroll back up.
Oh, was she up there?
Yeah, she's under the troops. But anyway, once she flips, she doubles all the damage dealt by everything.
Oh, yeah, she's
so
right. She's right.
Yeah, so if you use her with Burn to the Ground and Rage Fires, things get pretty out of hand. Of course I didn't link the second half of her, but the second half is the same thing, except she does everything does double damage. So,
which is really good Rage Fire, obviously.
Yeah, and Burn to the Ground, which is Fireball. So you fireball someone for 14 pretty easily.
Yeah,
so
it's even good with Sapper's Charge, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, with anything that does damage.
Anything, yeah.
So I definitely like her, and I think I might try some decks with her as well. So she's also very good with the Rampaging Tarrasque because it's an 8/1 crush. So even if they chump block with something, they're going to be taking 10 to 16 damage.
Sure. So what do you guys think about the deck? What do you guys, Dusty, Charles? What do you guys think about?
I'm sure
My
Dusty
two
hates
cents. I mean, this will show the fundamental difference between John and I in building control decks. I want my control deck to be, more drawing cards, encountering spells, and
Hey, Howling Knight, man.
yeah. This and this is kind of like Big Red if you played Magic. So it's a control deck, but it does it in like a tap out kind of manner. So every turn you're tapping out for you have a couple quick actions, and it looks like it's a solid. If this type of deck works, then this is probably going to be pretty close to the right build. But for me, this is not the kind of control deck I enjoyed, just because I never truly feel like I'm in control with this type of deck.
Cool. Real quick, to answer a question, it says, do you think that ascending cards are worth it into your deck? It seems too easy to take them out of the game before they become worth it. So one thing to remember is that when they transcend or when they change to their next form, they do that permanently. So if they die and you bring them back or ever do anything to get them back, like let's say they bounce them or whatever, they actually come back into play as their flipped side, I guess. So that does make them a lot better, because once you get into that final form or whatever, and you can ever play them back out, they just don't die to like an unsummon, for example. You can just play them back out and continue to do the cool shit that you were doing with them before.
Yeah, I mean, and it is a 4/4. So as we've seen so far, or like 4/4s may be very hard to kill. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, we actually haven't seen anything that can kill a 4/4 other than like murder and the terrible transfer and
sure.
stuff like that. But there's no really very good removal that can kill a 4 power creature. I think 2 is our best so far.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I like the deck overall. I would probably change some ratios. I don't think I like Shrine of Prosperity in here, because I feel like it's a buff for the deck that really doesn't need it, because it's like, I'm going to give this 8/1 Rampaging Tarsk to make it a 9/2. So it feels like I might just put some more quality cards in here. It's already ramping. I don't think the resource thing's really doing too much for you there. I'm not sure if there's a really great... I mean, Shrine of Prosperity, more or less, I think I'd rather play it in some sort of white weenie or some sort of like aggro shell, where it's going to be like 4 is going to be the top cost, and you might have like that 1 or 1/5 coster at the top of your curve. I'm not looking at the curve. I like to look at the curve on the deck to make sure it is that turn 1 and turn 2 look pretty good, and other things. That's kind of important to me. So it's hard for me to judge that without seeing that in front of me. But that's pretty much it. I probably might go up to a 4th Sapper's Charge with that combo with the welding bot. It's not instant speed, but once you play it out there, I mean, it is a threat, and you can use it at instant speed. I'd probably pull 1 burn for that. He didn't go into 2 colors, so it's not a big deal there. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I see. I think this has a pretty good chance of gassing out, even with the extra card draw. Other than that, I mean, because it's basically card for card, a lot of it. There are some things where it's a nice 2-for-1 with the the heavy welding box going to give you a little bit. There was one thing, the Rocket Ranger. No, he's not going to do anything. Yeah, there's not a lot of 2-for-1 that I'm seeing in here. It's 1-for-1, a lot of it. So you could have a chance of getting gassed out.
Cool.
So that's pretty much it.
Awesome. I'm going to do mine very quickly because I don't have much to add. Other than the deck is really bad and I hate you. Honestly, I like Chargebot, and we talked about that earlier. I think it's a really, really cool card, and I think it puts... Control is probably where it's going to see most of its play. I think it's really neat. I like cards like this. They're cheap and do something cool when they come into play. Obviously, I like Sapper's Charge. I think that card is awesome. I'm glad this deck is taking advantage of it, because I think this card will see a lot of play, considering it's an artifact and it can be played in a lot of different decks. And I can see, not just control cards playing this card, but control decks playing this card, but I can see a wide variety of the other decks playing it as well. Did you ever think about playing some like Burn to the Grounds and stuff, Tana? Something like
Yeah, later on in the article, towards the end, because that list right there is 64, 65 cards. Yes, 65. So I mentioned below that if you cut the specialists and the burns, like that would put you at 60. I don't think burn does that much for for this deck. And then I added one burn to the ground, which someone pointed out that puts me at 61 because I only had 3 specialists. But like whatever, like it just takes something else out. I'm not even sure what. I haven't even tested this deck, unfortunately.
Shrine.
But sure, maybe Shrine. But like, just to address what Charles was saying, for a second, like this is a red deck. So your goal isn't really to 2-for-1 your opponent or do anything fancy. Your goal is to do 20 points of damage in very large chunks. So if you run out of gas, the whole idea is that your opponent is dead. So with the fulmination and combination of rage fires and Tarrasques, and then the 5/2 flying haste guys, like you will run out of gas. Of course it's a red deck, but by then hopefully you've done 20 damage.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The burn to the ground. I do like that as a nice ender. A late game ender.
Sure. Or just killing a threat maybe you can't deal with or something. Would be okay.
Yeah. Right.
The thing I want to point out, now that we're kind of done talking about the deck a little bit, is I think this is a good example of how control is going to be different in Hex than it is in Magic currently. Every time I hear somebody talk about control decks, I use that in quotation marks, is that they always want to put blue in there. They're like, I want blue in my deck. Like, it's control, I want blue. Like, unfortunately, I haven't seen maybe one card from blue that even looks like a control card at all. Like, I actually don't think blue is the control deck in this, or control color in this game. Like, I don't know if you guys disagree or not, but I really don't see anything that like blue seems like the tempo color to me. I don't see control coming out.
Well, I mean, it could be control by the time all the cards are previewed. Like right now, it's very tempo oriented, sure. But I mean, like Counterspell is a card, so I mean that's very controlling. But like so far, in my opinion, like white or diamond. and blood are like the 2 most controlling colors. So far.
Okay, so Mike, you use like Ripple, Counterspell, Buccaneer are, in my opinion, not control cards. If I play a control deck, that I do not want to just take my opponent's creature and give it back to them for a turn. Like to me, I want to kill them. I want to 2-for-1 them, 3-for-1 them. I want to kill their cards. And unfortunately, there's even Counterspell. Sure, like Mana Leak. We'll use Mana Leak as an example. Like it actually killed the card. If you couldn't pay 3, you could not play the card. It doesn't just bounce back into your hand. You can play it next turn. Like to me, I don't understand. Like I don't see the control aspects in blue. Like I'm looking more at black and red right now. Like they seem like the best control colors.
Sure, yeah. I mean, like Counterspell is very very controlling. Like it's cancel. Like if you play Magic, it is cancel with a small upside. So like no tempo deck would ever play cancel. But as far as the card Ripple goes. If you drew a card, it'd be very good. It can be like the old Magic card Repulse, which was very good. But Ripple, I don't really think I'd play it in a control deck per se, which is the same for Buccaneer, which is essentially Mana War. So.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing the control cards there yet. Like, I don't. I'm not saying control's not going to be playable. I mean, in my opinion, it's never playable at the start of a format. But I don't see the control cards there yet. I think that, and if there is going to be a good control deck, it's going to come out of red and black. And that's why I like this deck so much. It's my favorite control deck I've seen so far because it knows what it's trying to do. It realizes hey, look, I'm a red deck that has a lot of burn, and I guess you can call me control, but really I'm just going to shit on you with these spells and try to kill you and burn you out, or I can deal with your threats. Like to me, this is the right space to start with the control deck currently. Like you don't want to start throwing counter spells and shit in the deck because I don't think blue has enough yet to devote to that color just for counter spell. That's me. Dusty, do you have any? I mean, I know you also play control a lot. I mean, do you have anything to say about where control is at currently?
I mean, blue probably has the most controlling card at this point in counter Magic. I mean, I do agree that currently you don't have, the tools you probably need within just Sapphire to make a viable control deck because you lack any type of card draw that I've seen. I mean, you have manipulation of your deck in Peak, but that's probably not playable in any format. I mean, I'm going to be looking when I go to build control. I'm going to be looking at blood to start. You know, if nothing else changes, blood. You know, with Vampire King, with what is it, Extinction? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Extinction.
Yeah, Extinction.
Murder. You know, you have a lot of good. You know, the Dragon. A lot of cards I want to be playing in a control deck. You know, maybe you splash, you play Sapphire for counter magic, and maybe a couple other cards. I'm not really
card
sure.
Drawing. Yeah, that's exactly the deck that I put together. Was my first cast, I think, when I was doing my show. It was the Blood Sapphire control deck. That was it.
I mean, but I just don't get it. Like, why are you splashing blue for counter magic when you just splash red for like an actual burn spell?
Let me look at it actually.
Like, I don't. To me, there's just not enough in blue right now to ever try to build a control deck out of it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm looking at it a different way, but I don't.
Yeah,
know.
well, for next week's deck garage, I can revisit that Blood Diamond deck that we worked on like a few months ago.
Sure, and that deck is another good example of an actual control shell. Like, you have card draw in it, you have answers, you have a board wipe. Like, to me that is even like white is even better to me to splash than blue. Like, I mean, I get it. Like, I get in Magic, like, countering the spell was really good, and that's like kind of what control is. But like in this game, I'm not seeing it. Like, I don't.
You also have Void Leech, which we didn't mention.
Yeah, he's really good. I like that guy quite a bit.
I do too, but I think he is, again, just more of a tempo card. Like, he just bounces a card. He doesn't actually kill it.
No, he remands. I mean,
sure.
Again, I mean, he has a tempo element, but still, that's the kind of stuff you want when you're trying to control a board.
Yeah.
I mean, what do we have? 100 cards left to see. Like, I'm pretty sure.
At least.
Creative wants. They could change it up, but if for those of you not familiar with Magic, if you look at Magic, this game and the colors are very similar. So I would be surprised if development and design didn't intend blue to be at least one of the control colors. Maybe not the sole, but certainly a control type player.
Cool.
Right, and you know what? Looking at my list right now, Shaggy, it is exactly what you said. I basically splashed in Sapphire just for counter magic, and there's like no other Sapphire cards in here.
I don't think that's a smart decision when you build a deck. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I understand.
No, you're right.
Like,
You're absolutely right.
Blue is is one of my favorite colors. Black has always been my favorite color, but blue is always one of my favorite colors in Magic, or also in this game. But to me, it's just not what you need to be doing with blue. Like, white looks way better, and so does red. Like, if I was going to build a control deck, I would start with, like, for surely black. Like, you have to have black. I don't know if that's clear or not, but you must have that. And then, like, I look at splashing either red or white. I don't like this blue, which, like, also Master Fett says you guys forgot about Polymorph Dingler. Like, actually, that card's not too bad. I talked about it a little bit in one of my casts. I think the one thing to remember is that the effect is permanent, so that's something, I guess. But yeah, the card is good, I guess.
It's really really cool effect, and I think it's a good card. But costing 5 resources is like so annoying when an effect like that really should cost like 2 or 3. Like, honestly.
Well, you're right. I think it's annoying that costs 5 and murder costs 3. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it seems like they're both doing the similar thing, and the murder's just better, and it's cheaper. Like, I don't understand. It's almost like this 6-drop guy we showed. Like, why have a 4-mana one that is almost like actually just better, and then make a 6-drop one that's worse? Like, it just, to me, doesn't make sense. Like, if it goes up, like, maybe if it costs 5 and transform all their creatures into dinglers or something, like, that would make more sense. But like, I don't know.
And that goes into the color pie. They don't want blue to have the best removal, like Sapphire. Yeah. So, anytime blue gets a kill target creature, which is about what that is, it's going to cost more than blood. I mean, that's just, again, part of design development, and red, is always going to have the best burn spells and things like that. I mean, Dingler is, for all intents and purposes, a worse murder, but it's still, a murder in Sapphire if you're not playing blood.
Yeah. I think what someone said in the chat's a good way to look at it, too. You got to remember that, I guess if there's a reanimator strategy that gets, like, super, super popular, or, like, is really, really powerful, Dingler would probably be better than murder, right? Like, you can actually just completely remove it from the game. It's like almost like an exile.
Yeah, well, and if there's a guy that's indestructible, I don't know if we've seen anybody that can't be killed, but destroy target troop obviously doesn't work on an indestructible guy.
Sure. All right. You guys have anything else to say about control decks? What you think about them? Moving into towards alpha. Everyone kind of agree black is probably where we want to start at, and move on
They
to something else?
they really need some help. Like
I agree.
the fact that there's no dual lands in this game like that we know of yet is a pretty big blow to control decks. Like control decks almost always not. I don't want to say that. Like that's a pretty broad statement, but control decks most of the time want to be 3 colors. For access to the best cards of those 3 colors. So only being 2 colors kind of limits you quite a bit, and even still, as 2 color, like your threshold costs are going to get kind of mixed up. Playing like 21 or 22, basic resources with 4 shards of fate. So.
Right, sure. I agree. I mean, I actually, okay, like, as kind of closing with control, I don't think moving into alpha and saying I'm going to build a control deck is where you want to be. Like, please don't do that. In my opinion, that's not what control decks are for. You want to wait till there's a meta established and then build a control deck around that. Like, it's really hard to come into a format and just be like, I'm just going to build a control deck. Like, you can't do that without knowing what you're controlling. I guess like you don't know what cards are good against other things. You'll play a bunch of games, get an idea of what the good decks are, and what kind of cards you need to put in your deck before you try to just start out playing a control deck. I don't know. This doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, when a game first comes out or when a new format is established, like faster decks are the most played decks, but I feel that like mid-range decks are the best decks.
Sure.
So I mean that's something to keep in mind as well. Like going back to my deck from 2 weeks ago, that the Ruby Wild Blood deck. If you cut Ruby out and just play Wild and Blood, that will like a version of that deck. Probably not that 60, but a version of that deck will probably be a very, very, very popular deck because you have access to ramp, you have access to card draw with Pact of Pain, you have access to late game bombs like Vampire King, so on and so forth. So like that deck will be very, very, very good.
Okay, so speaking of awesome fast decks when the game first goes out, Mr. Dusty, I know you built a little aggro deck, didn't you, to show us?
Yep.
Basically some aggro stuff. So let me get that pulled up here. It doesn't actually tell you. Did you get to choose your champion or no? I don't think I had
I didn't put him in there, but it's the guy that does a Blaze Elemental.
Yeah, sure.
Poca the Conflagrator or whatever his name is.
Yeah. All right, so we'll let you kind of go over the deck there, Dusty. You can kind of talk about it. I actually think, do I have it actually put up on the stream, or did I?
Yeah, hit the large view there in the upper right. And I'll turn it a little bit easier to see.
Oh no, that's so not what we.
This is what you want. Oh.
That's okay. Here, we'll just reload. Hey, watch this. You guys didn't know I was a computer wizard, did you? Watch this shit. Boom. All right. Well, I'm all out of options. Small, maybe.
All right. Well, that's not going to work for whatever reason.
Show up.
Yeah, just go to a list for him. That's fine. Whatever.
You can click on them and they'll come up.
Listen.
There you go.
I'm an IT guy. Don't worry about it. I got this fixed. All right. So start off.
So, I mean, this is obviously a pretty basic deck, but the reason I put it together, like, if you're not familiar with card games, if you're new to card games, when a new set comes out or a new game comes out, usually the most aggressive strategies tend to dominate early on. And the biggest reason, I mean, they're the easiest to put together and build, so a control deck is going to take weeks and seeing what's in the meta game, what other people are playing, to really put together a solid control deck. What kind of answers do you want in your control deck? Whereas this type of deck, you don't want answers, you just want all threats. You want to play down stuff and have your opponent react. So there's a couple interesting things. I mean, I think in here, I think you probably want 10 one-drop creatures. And there's only 8 in here, which are the Tormentor and the Savage Raider. You may want, from what I've been kind of playing around with, you might want like 2 charge bots in here because even though it's only a 1/1, charging your champion with the guy that makes Blaze Elemental is obviously very good. I'm not really sure on the amount of resources. I have 25, which is actually the same that John has in his Ruby control deck. So maybe you want 24. Kind of my thought process on that is, while you can still have too many resources, the fact that your hero, has charge powers obviously mitigates some of that to an extent. And, in this case, your guy makes a 3/1, So maybe you want 24 resources. And I think the staples here that aren't of question are you probably want 4 burn, you want 4 savage raider, you probably want 4 tormentor, 4 witch, 4 rage fire, and then you probably go from there for the most part. So I don't know if people have questions, you guys have thoughts on it. I think it's important to know this deck because I will guarantee you you will play against this deck quite a bit early on.
Fast.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to say that I think whenever you said that you can 25 resources is a good number because you can keep making the 3/1 haster guy. Is something that I think a lot of people are going to forget about when they start playing Hex for the first time. Resources aren't as useless once you have so many like they are in Magic. You know what I mean? Like you can actually get that value out of them, like with the 3/1 elemental. I think it's a really smart decision to at least start out with 25 and then take. I know one of the first things I read about card games said that like it's better to start with too many resources than start with not enough. And I think that's a good decision to at least try it out with 25 first. If you find yourself drawing too many resources, then we can start cutting it down and do something with it. So, John, what do you think about this mono red deck?
Well, I mean, it's not my style of deck, but I'd be kind of remiss to say that it's not a good deck. I mean, it's very powerful. I do like the charge bot idea. I think that's probably pretty necessary, actually. I feel like you can go down to 24 lands pretty easily. Like I realize you have 4 Zoltogs and 2 Tarask with 2 X spells, which is I still think 24 is probably fine. You won't hit 5 that often, but you should still hit 4 pretty fairly often. The burn to the grounds, I think, are the most awkward card in the deck. I'd probably look there to cut that for the charge bots. And then with your 1 extra card for cutting the 25th land, you can either play 1 burn or something else, maybe even 3 charge bots. I don't know, but the deck is very powerful. So I mean, I don't hate it. I just don't like decks like this.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I don't like about the deck, and maybe I'm wrong, but I really don't like the Unmerciful Tormentor. This card seems awkward to me. I feel like there's sometimes I feel like most of the time he's going to be a 1/1. I feel like there's not going to be very many times that he's actually going to be a 4/4.
You would think that, but at the Gen Con League, Dusty played this deck all the time, and every time that I played him when he was playing this deck, this guy was a 4/4 on turn 4, like almost every time. So you would think that he'd just be a 1/1, most of the time, but he's actually very much not. So which is why I don't like the burn to the grounds as well. Like I know that you can just cast it for 2, just to play it from your hand, but I feel like it'd be better as just either charge bots or just something else that's much easier to cast. So
yeah, I think that the Zoltog is going to be a powerhouse in this deck. I feel like this card is going to be the annoying thing to play against as I guess I'm not going to say control deck, but actually I just will say control deck. Anything that wipes the board, this guy's a great answer to play immediately after that. You know what I mean? The fact he can just repopulate the board is very aggravating. Any card that gives aggro value is very annoying to play against. It sucks playing having to 2-for-1 yourself to kill 1 card that makes another card. So.
Well, and a couple things there. I definitely agree. I mean, I imagine we'll see some cards that will potentially drive the rampaging 5-drop out of this deck. I mean, I think it's a good card, but I don't think you probably want Tormentor and a 5-drop in the same deck. But again, the pool was. I mean, I'm not playing bad cards, so I'd rather have 2 good cards and make it a little bit awkward. And then the X spell again. It's definitely awkward in a mono red build, so you probably take that out. But in regards to Zoltog, maybe you stop the curve at him. But the thing to remember with him, you can drop him on turn 4, and let's say you have a Savage Raider in play or a Tormentor or something like that. Those guys swing in, and if they connect, if they deal damage, you get a Savage Raider immediately. So, or with your 3-drop, your Gladiator, also an orc, and it also helps, making your guys connect. So there's a lot of neat things you can do, and Zoltog's a guy to watch for other more powerful orcs to play in the deck as well.
Yeah. Mike says, not really because there aren't as many orcs in this deck. He has 7 creatures and 4 of them are orcs. So he has a good average of orcs in the deck. I'm not quite for sure. If you actually just use numbers, he has 6 non-orc creatures, right? Actually 8, 10 non-orc creatures, and 8, 12.
I mean,
15.
Zoltag, without other orcs, being a 4-drop 4/4 that when he dealt damage, created a 2/1, I would still play that card.
Yeah.
I would play it in, not only control, but, aggressive, mid-range, all types of decks.
I do agree that the uniqueness of Zoltag does make him kind of awkward. I agree. There's probably going to be times where you're going to have 2 in your hand, and that's going to be annoying, obviously.
Well, he's very important for the deck. Like, even if you just have a Tormentor in play and then play him, or a Veteran Gladiator and play him, just making 1 Savage Raider is pretty, game breaking.
No, you're right. I completely agree. I'm not saying there shouldn't be 4. I'm just reading much. Charles, anything to say about the mono red?
Yeah, I like the deck. I think it's a great gauntlet deck. Talking about going back to what you had talked about earlier in the week when you were talking about metagame and different things, and make sure you have decks that you can play against, especially when you're trying to come up with that control deck. It has to be able to defeat something that's going to burn your face, and this is a good test for something like that. Personally, if I were to swap, I'd probably just swap some numbers around. I like the curve on it. I'd like to see 3 a little bit higher than 4 on the curve. Just to have I guess that's just a thing with me. I'd probably take Rampaging Tarsh down 1. Burn to the Ground is fine as a 2 of. I like the Veteran Gladiator, so I take that up to a 4. Zoltag should be fine at 4, and I might put in 2 of the guy that's the 2/2 that you can't gain life and has Swift Strike. I probably put 2 of those in there as well as a nice 2-drop.
There's 4 in the deck.
Oh, there's already 4 of those? Okay. Well, I'd like to take the curve down to 23 for sure. I'd just run that risk, and I'd rather cast more spells personally, but just go with the classic 23. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. So I'll pop back over here, and we'll start talking about just aggro decks in general, what we think will become of them moving into alpha. So I want to say that I think that aggro decks are going to be the best decks moving to alpha, as it is almost every format. I'm actually okay. Like John said, I'm not gonna say the best decks, but definitely the most played. So whenever alpha releases and we start getting into alpha, almost I would say 5 out of fucking 5 of your matches are gonna be you playing against an aggro deck. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be mono red, but it's gonna be an aggro deck. I can almost guarantee it. Looks like can you guys still hear me? Looks like we might have lost a call.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me, Dusty?
Yep.
Looks like we lost John. Hey, at least he lasted like 30 minutes or so. That's not bad. Maybe next time he can stay in the whole call. But anyway, we'll probably get this back as soon as he. Is he back, John? You back? Nope. Call dropped. Cool. So moving forward, I think that we're going to see some black sneaking into this deck. I think that there's a lot of good black cards, a lot of good black orcs, like the one that you can either take 2 damage, or is it like 5 damage or something, and search out another orc, or search out another version of him. What's it, like the 2-drop, 2 threshold?
Yeah, it's Blood Harbinger, I think is his name.
Blood Harbinger. Yeah, I think he's very good. I think that that card is going to get played in some sort of aggro deck. Well, I don't know if it's going to be this aggro deck, but he will be played in something because he is that good. He's actually very, very good. So I think black might see something. I think green has maybe an ability maybe to do some kind of aggroness. But I think this is obviously going to be where it starts out. I mean, Dusty, what do you think? What decks are you looking at to maybe, if you're going to play aggro, what are you looking at?
I mean, I can see some blood coming into this. I'm not sure if I love Blood Harbinger, for those who read my top 5 article a while ago. And the biggest reason is it's a double blood threshold. So, if you're playing Witch, which is double Ruby, that's just like super awkward to have 2 2-drops that have 2 threshold of blood and sapphire. I think you can probably also take this deck towards sapphire, and maybe you don't play the orc theme, but you just have kind of a red, white inspire, aggressive type deck. So I know I'm going to start. I may be the fun police, is what I get called quite a bit, because I like to win. But I'm going to start with this mono red deck and just see how good it is versus other builds.
No,
So
I agree. I think that Shin Hair is another aggro deck to look at, like some people were talking about. I think that's going to be overplayed. I wasn't impressed with it at all at Gen Con. Actually, I think whenever we moved into Gen Con, I thought it was like the third best deck there, and I completely I think the Mono Black deck was better than it, to be honest with you. Like, I just was not impressed with it at all. Once I got there and actually started playing it, it was pretty annoying. I think it was a lot of that had to do with the fact they didn't have Evolve though, and like a lot of the other like buff cards. So I think that it could be strong, but I'm not so sure on it yet. Also, the Inspire deck is very, very strong. But I think the Inspire deck might be more of like a mid-rangey deck than it is really going to be an aggro deck. I think with the way Legionnaire works and like with the Shrine or the Memorial or whatever, I think we can see that being like a good starting point maybe for some sort of mid-rangey deck. I don't know.
Yeah,
John,
sure.
welcome back, by the way. What do you think about the aggro decks moving into Alpha?
They'll pretty much look exactly like that deck that Dusty just put up. I mean, they'll be very good. They'll be very popular. And, I'm sure they'll have some differences in cards, but, like, overall, they'll have the same, 52 to 56 cards, just like all the other ones. So, I mean, there's other ways to build aggro. Like, I heard you talking about the Shin Hair deck. Maybe I was away for most of the conversation, but, like, I feel like a properly built Shin Hair deck, will probably be, very good. So.
Cool. All right, Charles, do you have anything to say about aggro before we...
No, it's pretty basic, and it's definitely needs to. You need to have an aggro deck in any gauntlet. That's pretty much it.
Well, I agree. I think this red deck will be in gauntlets for a long time. In case you guys don't know what we mean by that, basically once we start playtesting as a team, or even if we just playtest one-on-one or whatever, we will have a certain amount of decks that are what we call the gauntlet. And basically they're decks that are usually they're meta decks, decks that are winning tournaments or doing very well. And then we make sure the decks we build, the decks we're playing, can do well versus those decks. I mean, there's no reason to build a deck if the top 3 decks are crushing you. You know what I mean? Because you're going to see those often. If you can't beat them, then the deck isn't good. So that's what we mean by gauntlet. And this deck will for sure, or some type of this deck will for sure be in our gauntlet. You have to be able to beat aggro because 2-year-olds and Dusty play them. So you have to do it. So before we move out of this, what's the best way to beat aggro?
Depends on what deck you're playing. That's the short answer.
No, I'm saying if you're creating a deck to beat aggro, what is the best way to beat it? What are you
low end sweeps and then mid range sweeps, I'd say.
Yeah, like. Go ahead, Dustin.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
All right. Well, it's basically effects like Charles was saying. Like you have pyroclasm effects. So if you played Magic, you know what pyroclasm is. It was a 2-cost spell that did 2 damage to all creatures. So like cards like that are very, very good against faster decks. Mid-range decks tend to do fairly well against faster decks, just due to their cheap answers and plus larger threats. Yep. Shin Hair decks might actually be pretty good against them due to cards like Runs of the Litter plus Pumps to generate favorable trades. Just things like that.
So just like either out attrition them or like
yeah, basically. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right, so moving on. Also, Blake, you said I hope there are more than 3 top decks. I did not mean that literally. I just meant as an example. So I would guess there were probably more than 3 best decks. All right, Charles, let's move on to your deck, your ramp deck. Definitely feel like this will be a deck played a lot. This is kind of ever since I've played Magic, which isn't very long, there's always been that ramp deck, a deck that's like trying to cheat the system by. Actually, when I think of ramp, I think of it like as a deck that tries to cheat the system and play creatures before it's supposed to. Whenever you're a designer and you're making a card, you're like, I want this card to be played on turn 5 because if it's played on turn 1, it's probably pretty strong. So people find a way to cheat it out early, and that's very annoying. So we'll start out with Charles's ramp deck. I'll go ahead and link it in chat there.
Yeah, it's not linking very well, but hopefully the viewers at home can get to it.
Yeah. All right.
You're gonna have to copy the whole thing. Anyways, so yeah, the first thing I look at with a ramp deck is I have to get excited about what I'm ramping into. So I had to figure out why I'm going to even spend all the time trying to get the ratios right to do this. And Battle Beetle was a huge reason to ramp for me. We talked about him a couple weeks ago. That's a pretty big reason. The other one was Jadim, the dragon, also a big one. So I called this one because they both fly, and I'm basically trying to get to those cards, play them, and win. And in the interim, I'm going to ramp up to them and sweep my opponent out or murder their stuff, with either extinction, or I'm going to murder some stuff, or I'm going to use like Shadow Grove Witch to 2-for-1, or I'm going to use what is it? The other one. I think I have one more in here, or Zarloth, the Broodlord, to try to 2-for-1 my opponent, and just make sure it is that the board state is stable enough where it is that once I play the bomb, it's very difficult for them to deal with it. So I called this Flying Ramp Stompy because basically I'm ramping into these flyers that are going to stomp my opponent's face in. So the ramp cards I chose to go with were Hex Engine, one of John's favorites. I might need to bump that up. Listening to John tonight, that was somewhat obvious to me. Chlorophylla is another favorite of mine, because it's similar to Rampant Growth, but it doesn't deck thin. So the biggest problem I'm seeing right now with the ramp deck genre in Hex is that very likely we're not going to see ramp cards that actually deck thin. Because given the digital nature of this game, you're simply going to get numbers added to your total, and they're not going to deck thin for you. So that's going to be somewhat of a drawback for playing this. I had to go to 26 resources, playing the 4 obligatory Shards of Fate right now, because that's what we've got. Let's see, I went up with 12 Wild Shards and 10 Blood Shards, but I didn't do the math properly. I just simply took a guess. I counted some things up, and typically when I'm doing a curve on something like this, I know I'm kind of all over the place here, is what I will do is I will add up all of the actual symbols. So you see on, starting with Battle Beetle, we have 2 shard symbols on that, so that counts as 2. And I have 4 of them in the deck, so that's 8. And then I go through and I count up all the symbols, and I figure out what the ratio of symbols are to the other ratio, and that's what made the decision. I know how many lands I want to run. I might actually probably go up to 27 resources in a deck like this, given the nature of Hex in general. I'm trying to think of what else we need to talk about. I got the Life Siphon as your game ender. It's a lot like we were talking about with the Blood decks, or I'm sorry, the Ruby decks we just talked about. It's just going to come down, and if I draw at the end of the game and they're at 10 life, hopefully I can just end the game right there, and they won't be able to respond to that. The Sensei of the Milky Eye is mostly just a cantrip to kind of get me through the deck. Fusion Device, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Again, more card drawing. I need to get to the bombs. I've got 6 of them in the deck. I need to get to them. The other one that I thought was the most interesting thing was actually the champion that I came across. This 8-charge champion. I think you could actually get that off fairly often. Given the Chlorophylla is going to get you charges. What else is going to get you charges in here? The Chlorophylla is really the big one. I had Chargebot in here. I pulled them. It didn't seem like it was going to be good enough for this type of deck. Could be wrong on that one. So
Sure.
Yeah, I'm ready to have some stones thrown.
All right, we'll start with Dusty. What do you think?
I definitely think it's a neat deck idea. I mean, there's a couple cards I don't understand, and I'll be brutally honest. I mean, to me, like a infusion device in this deck, it might as well read pay 1, discard a card, pay 4, get that card back. I understand it's fixing threshold, but I really don't see where you need that in this deck. I mean, I think your highest threshold is 2, I believe. 2, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
And I don't want to be paying 4 to cycle through my deck. There's that 1 cost blood card I think we talked about last week. If you're really wanting to dig, I think that sees 2 cards, if I remember right. I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah, it exiles 1, but yeah, you get to see 2 cards possibly. I know.
And then the only other card, and first of all, I love Zarlox. Like, this guy's going to be just awesome in control mid-rangey decks. But I'm not a huge fan of Life Siphon type cards, and that's primarily because maybe you do it for 5 or something like that, but then you've discarded a card and it didn't kill an opponent's creature or something.
Sure.
Didn't put a threat on the board, so it better end the game, or else you're just -1 card for the game. But other than that, it's got a lot of the elements I like in a control rampy type deck.
Yeah. Moving to the sideboard, I guess. I'm sorry, I forgot to do this. Can you click over the sideboard, Shag? So I put the 4 Chaos Keys. I think those are going to be somewhat obligatory in a lot of sideboards for a while because they're a catch-all. John was putting 1 in the main deck. You could even do that. The Shadow Grove Witch, another one that I really like, and Zarlock. So to finish out your play sets. So I suppose you could replace in the main deck what Dusty was just talking about. You could probably replace that Infusion Device with the play sets of Zarlocks and the Shadow Grove Witch. The Bone Warrior, I really wanted to play more of in the main deck, but I just didn't. I don't know. It's nice because he'll probably survive the sweep as long as that's the way it works. What was it? Omen of Oblivion. Why did I put this in here? This is the one card where it is that you can void cards out of your opponent's deck. So this is Lobotomy. You can lobotomize your opponent's deck.
It's pretty good against like a combo deck.
Combo or something you just want to say, I don't really want to see this card ever. Eternal Guardian. Eternal Guardian, I guess it's another one. It's kind of like on the top end. He could really stop a lot of damage, maybe. I don't know. He doesn't seem that good, really. It's kind of like there's not a lot of cards still to build decks out of, and so the things I have is kind of like the things I could find. There's probably better stuff. Actually, thinking about it today, I really need to have what's his name in here, the 05 guy that kills everything, or whatever. What's his name? The artifact
Argus.
guy. Argus needs to be in here. That's really the one I missed out on that I didn't even think about. That's a huge one that I missed.
Sure. Okay. So a lot of people in the chat is asking about Shadow Grove Witch. So maybe we can have a discussion before we go any further about Shadow Grove Witch and Standard and what we think of her. So we'll start with John and go work our way over. What do you think about Shadow Grove Witch and Standard, John?
I don't like her. I don't like her in any format, actually. I think the card's really bad.
You don't like her in Limited at all or anything at all?
Nah, not really. I mean, it's okay, but like it's the problem with it is that, okay, first of all, it's 4 cost 2/2. So I mean, that's not really, very good. But like second of all, like they don't actually discard the card. So I mean, if so they say they reveal a land, like you pick a land from their hand, like you essentially just played a 4-mana 2/2 and no 1 card in their hand. Like that's, I don't think that's very good. But like I don't think I'd even play that card in Limited. But maybe I'm wrong.
Oh my god, it saved the terrible version of her. No, well, that idea went out of the way.
I just simply like it because it can invalidate a card possibly, but I mean, yeah, there's going to be better things out there.
What you just said, the way you just explained her, Charles, is why I hate her. You said you could possibly.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to pay 4 mana for a card that could possibly do anything at all. Like, and we talked about this last week. I hate the word random. If the word random is in a card, I won't play it. I promise I won't. I don't give a shit if it says random. Like, you have a chance to win the next tournament you play in. I still won't play. Like, fuck it. I also have a chance to not win the next tournament I play in because this card's terrible.
See, like even in Limited, like in a draft format where like there are more troops in people's decks, like I still don't think it's very good because they're still going to have 17 resources, approximately, plus say, 5 to 8 non-troop cards. So there's, that's like, 22, 23, 24 cards in their deck out of their 40 that aren't troops. So it's still going to miss, quite a bit.
Yeah,
right.
For sure. I agree. Like, if you could choose, I think it would obviously be better, and I think it would be one of those cards that would be pretty good against the aggro match. I think at 4 though, it's still not going to be that great against the aggro match. Like, you're probably gonna they're gonna have too big of a field for you to really to do much with the card. I mean, Dusty, what do you think about Shadow Grove Witch? We'll quickly get off the topic, but what do you think about Shadow Grove?
Yeah, I mean, I'm similar thoughts. Like, I don't think constructed it's where you want to be, but I just know someone mentioned it, Dog Mod in chat. I would almost rather just play 2 Vampire King in this slot, for the off chance that you murder a guy and get an extra guy, or summon Zarlock's a guy.
Evasion.
That's another smart thing to think about too. The card is taking up the 4 mana slot right? So like you got to look at the other 4-mana slots, and not only black but in green. And I think you're right. Obviously, Vampire King, even though he's kind of loose for what his effect, paying 4 mana for a 3/3 flyer is probably just better than playing 4 mana for a 2/2 that has no evasion and is probably not going to do anything.
Yeah, and if you want an effect like the Witch, like I feel like Giant Corpse Fly is probably better, than the Witch.
Oh yeah, sure.
Right, discard a card, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and on the limited side, I mean, it's really going to depend on the format. Like this is one of those borderline cards. You might play it. Given what we've seen, it might be your 22nd, 23rd card slipping into your deck. Like John said, it's going to whiff probably around 50% or more.
Yep.
Which means you're going to have half of the time a 4-drop 2/2. And is it an effect powerful enough the other half of the time to justify that? And it's very borderline. I mean, again, it's one of those you just got to wait and give it a try, because we haven't really seen another card like this in other card games.
You guys see what Sean said? He said he's Hex's Aggro Bolus.
Yeah, Aggro Bolus is the same thing. Like sometimes you play them out and you're like, yep, got there, get some.
It feels pretty bad.
Yeah, and then sometimes you hit like 3 things that suck, or maybe a creature that you need, and then you're like, shit. Screw myself.
I completely agree with Sean. Yeah, I mean, I wish I could play other things, but again, the card pool is what it is, and so there's probably some better things.
The difference with the Aggro, though, is Aggro's a 1/3 for 2. So
Sean is mostly trolling, but like that's still like it's not really like Aggro at all, but sure.
Cool. All right. So moving forward, let's look at the deck some more. John, let you take a look at the stab at the deck and see what you think.
Oh, it's it's very similar to what I was thinking of. Like Battle Beetle, I'm a really, really, really huge fan of. I talked about that in my my article 2 weeks ago. It's one of my favorite cards previewed so far, which is really weird because it's green. You typically hate green cards, but like it's really, really good. A 6/4 crush with any socket in it is just going to be very, 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 very good. Zarlox is really good. I don't like Surge Mechanism. I feel like it should be the 3rd and 4th Hex engine. The Sensei is kind of random, I think, but it is a cantrip, so whatever. The Witch, I don't like.
Any good 2-drops for this deck at all.
Sure, yeah. Like Vampire King is pretty sweet, but in this deck, the only thing that would trigger him is murder plus like trades, like combat trades. So plus Zarlox, I guess. But even still, like Vampire King is probably worth playing over like something. I don't know. Like he's pretty good. I don't think you need 4 extinctions. Like 3 is probably good.
I did think about that. Yeah, I thought about the 3.
But the deck's solid. I mean, like a deck like this, like Blood Wild, mid range, is going to be a very popular deck. So I mean, that's something to keep in mind. So Battle Beetle, Zarlox, like those are cards that you're going to see quite a bit, once the game comes out.
Yeah. So Dogmod says, I am not a huge fan of EOC, but if you are ramping green, why not at least have it in your sideboard? I mean, that is draw power or package.
Yeah, I might be okay in the sideboard, but the thing with is like it's a card that you have to build your entire deck around. So out of the sideboard, you can probably do something kind of cool with it, but like overall though, that's a card they can't just be like, oh cool, this card might draw some cards, let's put it into my deck, because there'll be times where you just draw it and you're like, oh, I can't do anything with this except maybe cast it for 2 or 3, which doesn't really do anything. So
looking over in the
all right, hold on a second. He wants to say hi.
Okay.
Say hi. Hi. Say hi.
Hi.
Oh, he's adorable. Can you tell him to say Shadow Grove Rich is too random? See if you can say that.
Okay, can you say Shadow Grove Witch is too random? No. No, he's shy now.
Oh.
All right. Say bye-bye.
No.
Bye-bye. All right.
All right. So moving into Alpha, guys, what do you think that? How do you think Ramp will fare? Do you think that's a good spot to kind of, you think it will have a good deck? Do you think Ramp is a good place to start?
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. Like, I don't know if it'll be the place to start, but like, I'm pretty excited about the decks.
Make it pretty strong to me.
Yeah, like Ramp, as in an all-out ramp into deck, like probably not at first, but like ramp decks, as in just playing a black green like mid range deck with some ramp cards in it, then yeah, like those decks will be pretty good.
Sure, I think that ramp definitely has the tools to succeed, right? Like it's not like we don't have any ramp spells or something.
Sure, I mean like blood and wild work very well together. So like ramping into a 6-drop is really good. So that's something that you can't just like dismiss. So.
Don Juan says, if you can only cast it for 3, then you aren't going to be able to cast Jadeem or Battle Beetle either. If you're in top deck mode with this deck, you better be able to at least go for 5 or 6.
Sure, and like having like 9 resources in play, like it's probably not going to happen that often.
Sure. Okay. All right, guys. So I think that kind of covers the ramp section. So moving on to a deck that I was going to build. I actually didn't have time because I am an idiot. So I think what we're going to do is just have us build the deck together as a team, unstoppable team. Is the tempo? I was going to build a blue-based tempo deck. So what do you guys think before we even get started doing this? What do you guys think of the mono blue tempo strategy moving into alpha?
Definitely strong. We saw that firsthand.
Yeah, sure. Like at Gen Con, as we saw, like Charles was saying, the deck was very, very strong. It'll only get better once we see more cards. But Buccaneer's really good. Ripple's really good. Thunderbird is insane. There's a lot of cards for the deck that you could play that weren't in there, due to rarity or complications or whatever. But like the 4-cost Voidleech Phantasm is very good for this deck.
I think so too.
Just cards like that. They're all going to be fairly solid for this deck.
So how many Phantasms do you run? Do you run 2?
Probably 3, I'd say. I mean, 3 seems like a good number. I mean, it's pretty important for the deck, I think.
Okay. What do you think, Dusty? How many Voidleeches do you run in the tempo deck?
Nah, I mean, 3 seems. I don't think you want 4 because you probably don't want
4 drops
doubles, but you definitely want 1. And anytime I don't want doubles, but I want 1, I run 3.
Sure, and we definitely want 4 Thunderbirds, right? Like that card's that's the whole. Meat and bones, but it's definitely a contender.
If I want 4 Buccaneers, like I mean that guy was pretty key.
Sure, that guy. I mean, that guy's absurd. I mean, even when we talked to Dan, he was like, "This card is borderline OP. Like, it was the hardest card for us to battle." Maybe it was Corey we talked to who said that. I can't remember, but one of them were scared.
4 Ancestors Chosen.
Yeah, that card was pretty solid in the Gen Con deck. I liked it.
Yeah, I had no problem with it. I thought it was really good.
You probably want. What was the card?
How many counter magic do we run? 3 or 4?
I'd run 2
if
if at all.
Yeah, I don't think you want any like main deck. I wouldn't play any.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 at most, I'd say, but I don't like that card in this.
Can you bring the deck up while you're building it?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I was kind of
I mean, there's Menacing Grok too, but like he might be like a one of like 3 Voidleech Phantasms and 1 Grok or something, or maybe 2 Groks. I don't know.
I don't mind Menacing Grok. I think it might be a little too expensive. Like 5 is like maybe 1. Like what do you think about 1? Maybe.
Yeah, like you could play 1, which could act as like the 4th to fill the void for the 4th Voidleech Phantasm.
Okay. Did you guys already pick the champion?
No, I don't know where you picked the champion on this, to be honest with you. Actually, let me go to large mode on this. Well, it's like a little bit easier to check, to look it out. Well, it's only the deck. Okay, well, that's not good. Show all cards, maybe? Oh, here we go. I fucking broke it.
Yeah, I think you definitely want 1 Grok just because, I mean, it's ideally ends a board stall and ends the game.
What do you guys think of Stormcall?
I didn't really care for it too much, honestly, but I mean, I played this deck probably more than any other deck other than the white one, and I didn't really care for Stormcall.
I'd run maybe a one of as a win con, where it is that the board state for some reason is stalled out, but you've got all these flyers. It probably won't make a difference.
Seems like a sideboard card, if anything.
Yeah. I was actually just about to say a sideboard card. I mean, like most of your guys have evasion anyway, so you're not like you're really tapping out to be offensive with it, right?
In the mirror match, maybe.
Sure, maybe.
I mean, I think if you're going to run Stormcall, you probably just run Menacing Grok.
Yeah,
before
exactly.
you run Stormcall.
Yeah.
That's true. The cost is going to be probably similar. You know what I mean? Like you're probably. All right, so we have 1 Menacing Grok. What was the other card? Let's see.
I also really like the it depends on what our creatures are going to look like, but the Amir Knight is actually pretty sweet too. I like that guy a
The
lot.
Mirror Knight is really cool. It says, okay, so in case you guys don't know what this does, that's the smallest card preview I've ever seen. As another troop with cost equal to or greater than this troop's cost enters play under your control, it gets permanent. When this troop deals damage to an opposing champion, draw a card. So the only thing I like about him is he's a 3-drop. Like, how many cards do we have that's like 3 or more, right? We have.
Well,
Buccaneer.
it's like ideally it'll be the Void Leech Phantasm, of course, the Menacing Grok, and I assume that we'd also play some other like form of 3-drop, be it like the 2/2 flyer or just something.
Sure. I like. What do you guys think about the Wizard of the Silver Talon?
I like him.
I mean, he's fine. Like, I mean, I don't love him, but like,
I don't like that he's a 4-drop though. I don't like that he's.
Yeah, but.
Like, I mean, Void Leech Phantasm was way better than the Wizard.
No,
Like,
I agree.
I think anyone can even argue that. But like, they're both 4-drops. So I mean, you can't really play, like large copies of both of them.
Right.
So.
Sure.
I mean, he's not bad. Like someone was saying, like 2 troops for a cost of 4 is not awful, but you also have to figure out like how much power that you're getting as well. So it's not like that exceptional. I don't think. Like I like Oracle Song actually too.
Like, what did you say, Oracle Song?
Yeah.
Yeah, the draw 2.
Have you got Oracle Song?
I mean, I think
alphabetical order. Why are they not?
with
Continue, Dusty. I'm trying.
I was just gonna say with Wizard. I mean, I think you have to decide in this deck. Are you gonna play Air Superiority?
Yeah, that's what
Right.
that was actually gonna be my next question. Do we play it? Do we have? I mean, so far every creature we have with the Buccaneer is a flyer.
I play it.
I mean, Buccaneer with the charge power is a flyer.
Yeah, well, exactly.
That's the
Exactly.
thing.
So,
Yeah, like I feel like right now you kind of have to play Air Superiority. Oh, plus that, yeah, we actually definitely want to play Mirror Knight because that triggers on our Buccaneers as well.
Oh yeah, that's true. But see, like, okay, so Air Superior, I don't think you run 4, right? You just want like 2 or something, right? You don't want all 4.
Like Anthem effects, you either run 0 or 4. Like
Alright.
you really can't mess around with that.
Okay.
Yep.
I guess we run 4 of them. That sounds.
You might go
I don't think
3,
I like it that
but
much. I don't think I like it enough to run 4 of them. I don't know. It just seems kind of. I don't know, but you're right. I guess we do have like literally almost all flyers.
even if you draw like 3 of them in your opening hand, it's not bad.
Well, I mean, you mulligan.
I'd play it.
So do we run Mirror Knight? How many Mirror Knights do we run? 1 or 2?
No, we definitely want more than that. I think I'd run as many as 4 if I could fit them, but 3 like at least.
Yeah, I guess
like,
he is. I guess he's a 2/3, right? That's actually
Like
pretty good.
he's like the definition of tempo. Like you deal damage and you draw cards, so it's really good.
So you want to stay monocolor on this, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, if we have the card, sure. I mean, how about Phoenix Guard, right? He hits our Mirror Knight, and he's a 3-drop 2/2 flyer. I don't know.
I mean, sure. Like if we have room for him, like that would be
How many
one of
cards
the
we
last
up to?
cards.
We're up to 24 cards now, so we still
Okay.
have quite a bit of room.
I mean, I probably also, this is just my personal preference. This type of day, I probably play, at least 2 counter magic.
Sure.
Because
2 would be the number I would play if I played any.
Yeah.
like I think you can get on the board and then
I like that.
you basically just you keep beating and they go to play their extinction or whatnot and you just counter it and game's over.
Yeah, it beats extinction. It beats like your removal spell and like your, something. I don't know. Like I think at least having 2 would be fine. I mean, like it's. I guess if it didn't, I don't know. It does cost. I like counter magic. We'll
Like
put at least 2 in there.
There's also Ripple. I don't know if you added Ripples or not yet.
I
but
couldn't
that's
find it.
another.
Like, maybe they're not in here, but like I thought.
It's called Time Ripple.
You're
so
right,
it's-
Time Ripple, but I still don't think. Yeah, it's not in here.
Like this database. I mean, I don't want to talk bad about anyone's website. They're all really cool, but this database is the one that's not as good as the other database, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Time Ripple's not in here.
Yeah, I had
What's the
someone-
other website? What's the other one?
TCG
browser. Yeah.
Browser, yeah, that's the one that I got turned on to this week.
Like they have a deck builder in that one too, actually.
Thank you, viewers.
Yes. Shaky loves defenders. Shut up! I do not love defenders. I hate defenders. They just do nothings. All right. Where the fuck is the deck builder in this website?
So would you play Shrine in this?
Hang on.
maybe 2
How-
Shrine?
How the shit do you get to
Prosperity?
Right there where it says Deck Builder, Dusty. Just like scroll down.
It says Deck Builder somewhere?
Yeah, scroll down. Right there underneath all the filters.
He's got to log in.
Oh, you have to log in to do it?
Well, maybe not. You go up to the top. Decks. No, to the top, very top.
Okay, like you're behind.
I'm watching the lagged.
Yeah, exactly. Cards, decks, equipment, form. Oh.
That's not important. Like, just go look at the list of cards. Like, we'll just do that.
Okay, you're right.
Because it's very up to date, so we can actually see all the cards. Like, it's really not
actually,
that
there's a second card, Time Ripple. Okay, so I like Time. Obviously Time Ripple's okay. Like it's. I feel like if it didn't have the +1 permanent cost, it'd be really bad. But I think with the +1 permanent cost, it's actually pretty important.
Go to a different view. Like right now, it's under list view, and
you're right.
I don't really care for this view.
At the top right.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. Sorry about that.
And then if you wouldn't mind checking PvP, and then check all the artifacts as well. In the color, there's a thing where you can check artifacts. PvP.
Yeah, no color. Okay. What the hell's the clone zone?
All right, so you might want to click PvP and not PvP.
I was like, what the fuck? All right. Here we go. Hey,
Papa Victor Papa.
Okay, there we
Victor
go.
Papa. All right, Cosmic Transmort. I think we run 4 of those in the deck for sure. I love that deck. I love that card. How random it is. It makes me really happy.
I think this is one where I would 2 of Shrine, maybe, possibly.
There we go.
With all the other Anthem effects. You don't want too many Anthem effects, but it's kind of like another Anthem effect.
Let's see. What else we got here?
Comet Strike.
Chaos
So
Key,
the
sideboard.
Polymorph card might not be the worst in a deck like this.
You think so?
I mean, it costs 5, but like it's it's removal.
I don't know if I like it or not.
Is there something cheaper that just taps things down or puts them back in your opponent's hand?
Oh, we're talking about Oracle Song. How many of those do we run? Do we run 1 or 2 of those?
I mean, at least 2. You might want more, but 2 seems like a good start. Keep going down. Oh yeah, like we're just running out of cards to add. Like I think. I mean, it's.
Yeah, I mean, I think like
they were
given
pretty
the
much there.
You may look at like even like Sapper's Charge. You know, as a fact that it can.
Yeah.
In the version I had, the version I built of it, I had 2 Sapper Charge in the deck. I thought that card was like pretty good for what the deck's trying to do.
For sure.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, push through damage. I mean, it could really win you a game.
I don't know if you run more than 2, but I liked it a lot.
2 seems good.
Chronic Madness and Sabotage. I actually don't mind Sabotage. Like that card is just so much fun. I mean, it's not good, but it's very fun. Let's see what else we got. This is Grand Strategist. Oh, okay. Whatever.
I mean, maybe you play 2 Menacing Grolk. Like that's probably what I would do building this deck. But again, we've got another 100 cards to see. Like if you're going to keep this in mono Sapphire, you're going to have to dip into some less than ideal cards.
Sure. Well, okay, so we'll pull back out of here now. So what do you guys think about what other color would you put in here? If you guys had to put a second color with it, what would you put in? Red or?
Red. Or ruby, rather.
Sure.
Because it's got those instant removal. It just seems more tempo-y. It's got low damage, but it can remove a lot of things very easily. Yeah, I like ruby, personally.
Cool. So what do you guys think about the tempo type decks moving forward with
I really like tempo decks. Like I really enjoy playing them. I mean, I think I try to stay mono blue, but I definitely like it. Or even add in Magic anyway, blue and green work really well as tempo decks. So going to wild is something to consider as well for cards like Sensei of the Milky Eye or whatever, just cards like that are just card advantage type guys.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like Sensei isn't too bad if you get him flying with a couple of air superiorities out or something.
Sure,
it's the worst thing ever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's terrible. I looked at a couple of the green cards, like looking for a second color, and I was looking at green and red the most. I don't think black is even that terrible either. I mean, I don't know if there's something you can do with it or not, but There might be something that you can do. I mean, tempo decks are my favorite decks to play, but I think that they're the only deck that is not guaranteed to be in a format. If that makes sense. Like, I feel like almost all the other decks we've talked about are always present in a format, but tempo decks are rarely. You know, a lot of people call them aggro control decks or whatever. You know, they're very rarely in a format, and when they are, they're almost always the most powerful decks. So cool. So anything else closing, guys, about tempo or Dusty, Charles, John?
No. Do you feel like most people? Does everyone in the channel really understand when we talk about tempo, like what we're saying? Anyone have any questions about tempo in general, like as far as like? Okay,
well,
it doesn't seem like
it. Like somebody asked, like, what is tempo, and I kind of typed it out. It's basically just, you know, like having cheap answers for your opponent's cards while still applying pressure with, you know, with your cards. So, and that's basically what it is.
Right. And a lot of times you're doing things which may only last a turn, like bouncing something to someone's hand, but you're keeping tempo by keeping that pressure on.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you lose with the tempo deck if you stumble and you lose tempo by allowing your opponent to stabilize or kill your biggest threat or do things like that.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's here while I have it ready.
I'm gonna get ready to do the giveaway, guys. If you guys have any questions, please ask the questions. We'll get to them as fast as we can. I'm gonna get the stuff ready to do the giveaway. I have to just like cycle through the viewers basically. You have to be following is the only rule I think currently. You just have to be a follower of the stream. Other than that is it. I'll let John explain a little bit more about tempo, and then Dusty kind of, you know, if you guys have anything to say about it real quick, just kind of stall, I guess, until I get this get given up here.
I mean, I pretty much said everything I want to say about it. I mean, like, you know, tempo decks just, you know, have really cheap, like, you know, 1 and 2 plus threats, while also, you know, insert your cards via, you know, bounce X, and, you know, just cheap.
Is he like unhearable for you guys too?
Yeah, he's breaking up.
All right. So moving forward. All right, Dusty, do you have anything else to say before we move on to this awesome giveaway?
No, just looking forward to Alpha. It's
not too far away.
Very close at this point.
It's not too far away. It's like what, like 2 weeks away, something like that. So.
Yep.
All right, so I think I got pulled up here. Sorry, poor Tata. I'll give everybody a couple more seconds. If you guys do not, or let's see if you're. Please make sure you're following. All right, pop it up so you guys can actually see the dashboard, so you guys see that I'm not cheating here. Let's see, since we have 28 so far, let me get the moderators out of here. You guys don't get to win things. That's silly. See, 28, see, it tells +4. That should be about right. I think that's how many viewers we have. Alright, guys, so which one do you want to do? You want to do the 7th one, 4th one, 3rd one? What are we doing?
3rd.
Oh, okay, Asaki, I got you covered, man. I'll do that as soon as this is over. I'm sorry, man.
Here, so you owe someone sleeves, Dusty?
Yeah, I'll get them.
All right, here.
I have 4 codes that got sent to my email, so I'll just give them one of those.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. All right, so here we go. We'll do the 7th one. Actually, we'll just like do the 3rd one or something. Here we go. 3rd one. Here we go. Let's these. Good try. Let's go again. Dog mod. All right, here we go for the winner. Drum roll. Come on, Charles. Drum roll it. Oh shit. Bio Mike. What's up? You won, sir. Please say something.
He's in chat. I saw him.
There he is. Gotcha, man. We will write you a message, get you set up.
Here, Mike, I'll send you a Twitch message now with the code, if that works for you.
All right, I'll get a Saki then as soon as the thing goes. I got you, Saki. I'm sorry, man. Actually, I don't know how I forgot that. I'll get you as soon as this is over, bud. Sorry. Alright guys, thanks again for checking out another episode of HexTCGPro.com. I'll let these sexy guys above me say their farewells, and then we'll go over the shoutouts. I'll have John talk about the website, have Dusty talk about Facebook, have Charles talk about his kids, and then we will get out of here. John, Dusty, Charles, do you guys have anything to say, starting with John? Go.
Nope. As always, guys, thanks for tuning in.
Awesome. Words of wisdom. Dusty.
No, I mean, again, just we're pretty close to actually getting to try all these ideas out, so looking forward to it.
Awesome. Super pumped for it as well. Charles.
Yeah, just make sure you guys keep getting the word out with people. We had quite a few questions I saw today in Reddit about Slacker Backer and different things. Just get the word out. Tell people they're going to be able to get in the alpha, play all the cards, turn them onto our channels. I got Friday, and then every Thursday. This is happening. Shaggy, you guys show on Tuesdays?
Yes, Shaggy TV is on Tuesdays, every Tuesday at 9 o'clock. And we do Shaggy, we do HexTCGPro.
Eastern.
Yeah, Eastern time, yes. Eastern, where all the cool kids live.
And that's pretty much it. I'm going to be doing random things. There's another card game that's on Kickstarter, which I'm looking at. I should be talking to the creators of that sometime, but you'll probably see most of my stuff on YouTube.
Awesome. Mike, thanks again. We appreciate it. Literally, guys, you have no idea how much every one of you mean to me. I love it. Every time I stream, you guys are always here talking, telling you guys, give me good suggestions. I really appreciate it. I appreciate and thank you for every follow that I've received. Real quick, we're going to run through the... I'm going to get the stuff ready. Dusty, what you talk about Facebook and some of the giveaways that are moving forward?
I mean, we still have the ongoing guessing when alpha will be, so that, we'll close up. We reserve the right 1 minute before the official announcement. And then just keep an eye out. We still have got, I think, 15, 20 different promo items to give away throughout the next couple of weeks, and we'll probably also continue that into alpha. And then the last piece, just keep an eye out if you're interested in an autographed, awesome-looking Hex mousepad signed by all the guys at CZE, the guy that made the game. We're going to be auctioning that for charity probably within the next few weeks once John gets it from Dan. So just keep an eye out.
Awesome. So, Shad, you said, "Hey Shaggy, my comments are not showing up on the website." Do we have any idea why that could be happening, Tata? Why that? I think it's. I don't think he can talk. I think it's just because he is jealous of how much more popular my stuff is than his, and he's trying to make it look like that it's not by not letting you guys comment. But in all seriousness, we will. I think we'll pass it on to Chevy, and hopefully he can take care of it. So popping up here, guys, here is our Facebook page. We just have all of our giveaways. Also, someone asked earlier in the show, I apologize. Yes, we are still doing the I Swear I Was There giveaway. I think we'll probably have some information on that come up pretty soon. Whenever Dusty gets around to it or whatever, we'll have something coming up for that. But you can go here, check out all of our awesome... This is where we always post all of our new all our new articles before they go up. Also, check out HexTCGPro.com for all the newest and awesomest and sexiest videos and articles. Also, John's Deck Garage goes up every Monday, I believe, is when he's doing it now. Also, if you go to Shaggy TV, Twitch TV/Shaggy TV, you can check out my schedule here. This is when I'll be streaming. Also, the past week, I always have all the links here as well. And here is the links to everyone else's streams instead of Charles, because I always forget to put Charles.
Right. It's a secret stream.
Yeah.
Only cool people know about it.
It's actually Errant Squire. I'll go to it right now. I'm so sorry, Charles. I continue to forget about that. You can go to Errant Squire, so Twitch TV/Errant Squire to check out Mr. Sexy Charles and all the games that he plays. I'm not really sure what he's doing this week or know much about it. If you want to maybe tell people what you're doing, Charles, we can go from there.
I got crying children in the background.
Okay, so he'll be doing stuff that you guys will love to watch. Also, check out Mr. Dusty's stream. Dusty, are you still streaming Soulforge every once in a while, or?
Yeah, I haven't here within the last week or two, but definitely plan to kick that back up, Soulforge, and also do some hacks like draft simulation.
All right, awesome. And Mr. Tata's stream is here. I know he just got his new computer, so he should be live streaming something within the week, hopefully. So you guys can check them out there. Please do. Guys, thank you all so much for following, liking, watching, commenting, loving. You guys are all the best. Thank you all so much. Guys, anything else to say before we close this bad boy up?
That's it. Have a good evening.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next Thursday at 9 o'clock. They already canceled the call. They are ready to go. Guys, we'll see you next Thursday at 9 o'clock. Go Mountaineers indeed.